Nate Madden, he's a staff writer for the Conservative Review. Joe Madison, my old friend, liberal talk show host, and also David Goodfriend, formerly of Air America at XM Radio, Democratic strategist and advocacy attorney who works closely with the Teamsters, with us tonight, and who has also told me yesterday that he's a Clinton supporter. So we'll start. Is it going to be a big night, David, for Hillary Clinton?
It is going to be a big night, and I think it's really important. I want to say this right up front. I think the Democratic Party is looking very strong tonight. We can get into back and forth about Hillary versus Bernie. Let's not lose sight of the bigger picture here. You listen to these Democrats talking, they're talking about what people care about. You look at what the Republicans are doing, they look like a middle school brawl on a playground. There's just no comparison. So I think regardless of who gets the most delegates or who comes out ahead or behind, I think the Democratic Party is going to come out way ahead tonight because of how these two leading candidates are behaving.
Well, I want to ask you about the CNN ORC poll that everyone's talking about today, because it comes out and says that Hillary Clinton is actually fared to do not as good as Bernie Sanders against the Republican candidates. It shows that Sanders actually has a wider margin over the three Republican candidates. What do you think about that? And what does it tell you about what the public feels about Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders right now?
Well, first of all, when I look at polling, I look really carefully at the swing states that decide every presidential election. Big difference between looking at a national poll, which includes people in New York and California, versus a poll state by state, because let me tell you something, this election, like every other one before it in recent history, is going to be decided by Ohio, Colorado, Florida, a couple of swing states, 1 million votes. And I think on that scale, Hillary Clinton against any of these Republican candidates fares better. I don't think that we can look at polling at this stage of the race generally. I think we really have to look at who's going to be the best candidate and go for it in the swing states. That's where it's really going to matter.
Joe Madison, why can't Bernie Sanders do better with African Americans? And if the numbers turn out the way they did over the weekend in South Carolina, if that kind of number turns out in Minnesota and Colorado, it's going to be a long night at the office for the Sanders campaign.
I think there's two reasons. Number one, the Clintons have a long relationship with the African American community that goes back to when he was governor of Arkansas, and they have nurtured that relationship, even though there's criticism of his presidency and things he did that may have been rather draconian during the war on crime and that type of thing. The other reason is that Bernie Sanders did not have a team that could outreach to the African American community.
It wasn't until late that he got endorsements that made something.
Well, that's absolutely right. And those endorsements, I understand. I mean, we're not a monolithic group of people, so you get the likes of Harry Belafonte and Danny Glover. These are all well-known people. But I'll give you an example. Hillary Clinton's people reached out to my show several times, and they're still reaching out. I mean, we get emails. I have yet to get one email from Bernie Sanders people, and we've made repeated requests for him to come on the show.
See, now that's interesting, because in 2008, Hillary Clinton did not use liberal talk radio.
No,
she's using it now.
That's
I mean, you couldn't get Hillary Clinton on liberal talk radio, but you could get Barack Obama.
But it's an outreach type of thing, and it's your relationship. Bernie Sanders has some great issues that he's addressed. Minimum wage. I've demonstrated with Bernie Sanders in front of the White House, in front of Barack Obama's White House. But the reality is, you have to have a relationship with people.
I had a Democratic strategist in Texas tell me this morning that the one thing the Clintons do masterfully is network, and when they get a friend, they don't let them go, that they always make the phone calls, they always do the networking, and a lot of that has taken place in the African-American community over decades.
They know the ministers, they know the players, like you said, they don't let them go. And that's how
she may have the African-American vote, but what she doesn't have is the young vote. That is for sure. We know overwhelmingly young people are voting for Bernie Sanders. So, Nate, the question is, how can she close that gap? I mean, she's said, you know, she has admitted to people that I need to work on that. I need to work on my relationship with young people. Is she doing it, though?
I think one thing that plays out really well with millennials especially is sincerity, or at least perceived sincerity. Talk show host Dennis Prager said a while ago that basically summed it up from what I understood there. And speaking as a registered Republican here, I've kind of removed a little bit from the debate, but he said if Bernie Sanders is telling you it's raining, it's raining. if Hillary Clinton is telling you it's raining, she might be selling umbrellas. I'm paraphrasing here, of course, but I think that is one of the biggest problems that she's running into. With these ongoing investigations by the DOJ and FBI, along with allegations that have come out of different scandals from the Clintons' past, I think the sincerity issue with evangelicals with millennials comes into play. Apologize.
And I think the mainstream media has given Hillary a pass on just those issues you're talking about. I mean, I don't know why we can't get the transcripts of the speech. We're talking $11 million of Wall Street. You say something to somebody and they're going to pay you $11 million, you're going to tell them something they want to hear.
It makes you wonder what is being hidden there.
The question is, did she promise them anything in these speeches? Did she say that if I'm president, I won't go after Wall Street when it comes to regulation? Because that's exactly what they want to hear. But I want to ask you, Nate, taking a look at Trump, do you have that same problem with Trump now that maybe some Democrats have with Hillary, that you just can't believe what the guy says, that this is a show?
Well, me personally, I have a very hard time believing him. The really troubling thing that we've seen, not necessarily troubling, but very confusing thing, is that so many self-identified evangelical voters aren't turned off by this. Even in the past few months, we've seen corrections on his stances on Planned Parenthood funding. We've seen corrections and really just non-existent stances on what his health care plan ought to be. These are bread and butter issues for conservatives. We're getting non-answers, we're getting confusing answers, but still he's driving so much of the vote.
I appreciate your honesty, because I'm tired of hearing that people aren't going to die in the street. Is that the best thing America can do from the Republican side as far as health care is concerned?
Let me give you something that I just received before coming on. There's a piece I look at every day called The Root. Louis Farrakhan just stopped short of endorsing Trump.
Yeah.
He indicated he likes what he's hearing because he stood up to Jewish people who finance campaigns. Now, here's the issue. Let's see how quick he disavows Louis Farrakhan and how strongly he disavows Louis Farrakhan, because he certainly didn't come across strongly when he was going after, when David Duke endorsed him. This is an interesting development that tomorrow morning I want to see what happens and what his campaign does.
All right, gentlemen, thanks so much. When we